Welcome to the Concept 101 podcast. My name is Daniel.
Stefan.
And Jules.
We are three concept artists currently working in the film and games industry, as well as the organisers of the Concept 101 event in London. In today's episode, we'll mainly be discussing personal work and why you should do it, maybe why you shouldn't do it, maybe a whole lot more. Who knows at this point? Before we start, we also have to thank the current sponsors of the Concept 101 2023 event. So a big thank you to Shark Mob, Chromatic Studios, Atom Hawk, Frame Store, Moon Colony, Foster & Partners, and Mood Visuals. So yeah, guys, personal work, it's a fairly big and I guess also a bit of a unique topic for our industry, right? Because not many, I don't think bankers go home and do personal work, right?
What do you mean? They just do work 24/7.
What we do for many people is a passion.
Yeah.
So I think that's when both worlds kind of blinds together. It's like we're fortunate, I guess, for most of us that it's, as I said before, it's a passion. So when you finish work, sometimes
maybe you want to keep
just
doing it.
it's nice to keep doing stuff. Or also sometimes at work you don't really choose what you're doing. And up until that point, until you get your first job, you only do what you want to do in your passion. And then you get a job and then you don't do what you want to do anymore in a way.
Yeah.
So that's when you get the chance to do your own stuff.
Yeah. I mean, just as an easy thing to start off with, how much personal work do you guys actually do? Like, let's say per year. That's a pretty wide time frame to kind of figure it out. Steph, you want to start?
It's a very wide time frame. I think every year has been different for me. So I don't know.
Okay,
I think
we'll
the
use
least
last
amount,
year.
Yeah, I think that's when I did the least amount because we were organizing the conference, so I had less and less time.
It's all our fault, is it? Huh?
I would put the conference into personal work. I know it's not what we're talking about, but
Yeah.
we might extend it a bit after.
If I put the conference to personal work, then a lot of hours a week must be like. I mean, should I that's not.
I think we're going to talk about this later because it's still personal work.
We can talk about it like per hour.
Just say how much do you do per year?
I don't know, like a project a year or something, 2 projects maybe. I think it's the best way to.
And what would you constitute as a project? What's usually involved in that?
So I think last year, oh man, I don't remember, but last year I did a project which was like a painting in this case, one of them. And I would say, in terms of, project is either selection of faster paintings or one painting that has a lot of thought put into it. So if I have a painting that I go, this is exactly what I want, this is how I'm gonna do it, and try to figure out how to do the painting exactly how I want it, then I would say that's a project for me. If it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna do this painting and not think about it too much, just like try to put something cool together, then I would say for that to be considered a project, I would have to do like multiple of them and something like that.
What about you, Jules? How much do you do per year?
It varies a lot, I guess. I do personal work only when I feel like I need or I want to do any. I'm not going to force myself to do any more work for the sake of being more productive or that kind of stuff. It varies. It's either I don't feel like doing any, so I don't do at all, or I feel like doing a lot and I just pump out a lot of personal projects in a short time. I don't know. It's hard to give an average. I'd say maybe between 3 and 5 projects per year, maybe a bit more. I mean, this year is going to be much more because I'm doing much more. Last year, I guess it was 3.
Yeah.
Maybe 2. Yeah. It's not a constant, you know. It's really how you feel in moments.
It does fluctuate, right?
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
And you, Daniel, how much?
But thank you for asking.
How many hundreds of personal painting do you do per day?
Well, okay, I think one year I did actually check. I think it was when I was at university. I think I did over 200 paintings one year.
Yeah, but university. But that's different. I mean, at university, I think we all did a lot of work.
Yeah, but that wasn't my university course. So I did a university course, and I did about 100 pages of like personal projects and stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Last year, I think I did maybe like 20 projects, or like 20 things that I would consider projects. In terms of like how much I post to ArtStation, I try and aim for like maybe 5 or 6 like substantial posts to ArtStation every year, and that usually includes like a compilation post for the year that I put up, which will be like images that I've done which I like but weren't attributed to a larger project. So that's always one that goes up. But yeah, I do make quite a lot of personal work. This year's probably been the slowest year I think I've ever had for personal work, just because I've been taking on more stuff in my personal time, which kind of like the event, I suppose, which is, it does take up time, like you were saying. But yeah, I mean, I really like doing it. For me, it's interesting you were saying that, you don't like to do work outside of work. But for me, it is like when you're saying like, people are passionate about it. I don't really find it that taxing to do. For me, it's like that I do art all day, which I'm being told to do. And then after I've done that, I come back home and I do work that I want to do. And that's like my cooling down. And I find that really enjoyable.
I don't think I said that I don't like to do paintings out of work. I think I love it. I think
you said doing additional work after work, right? Somebody rewind.
Did I say that?
I think you did.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
yeah.
I don't mind doing personal work after work. Really.
I guess on that note, do you find personal work kind of like taxing to do, guys? Because obviously one of the main factors that I think prevents a lot of people in the industry doing personal work is that you're like, well, even if maybe you didn't say it, or maybe I misheard you, but it's that thing of like, it's for them, it's more work after work to stay updated. Yeah.
I would say for me, I think this year I've been the best in my view, mostly because I've set myself a goal at the beginning of the year to have more time for personal work. And for me, that meant exercising one day less in the gym. Like, I mean, usually I would work out 5 times a week. I chopped it down to 4 times. And then one extra day that I don't work out, I do personal work in the morning. And then I would do some personal work in the evenings. And
it's good because you were looking very scary before, and now you're looking more normal. So yeah, I mean, I was terrified of you. Every time I walked into the house, I would cower because he would fill up the whole door frame with all of his muscle.
I mean, he wouldn't enter the house anyway.
No, I
because
wouldn't.
It was too big to fit the door.
Yeah,
it was
just sleeping in front of the house.
In fact, the reason why I made the decision wasn't just for personal work.
Yeah.
It was also just so I can actually live in the house that I'm renting.
Yeah.
Every time you made a coffee in the morning, you just break the mug.
Yeah. It was getting unsustainable. Like I would sit on the sofa and it would like start crumbling.
Yeah. Oh God.
Just disintegrating in your presence.
How many people did you kill shaking their hands?
I didn't. I was really careful.
He just broke their arms.
Yeah.
Just broke their arms. Yeah.
But
yeah, I mean,
I cannot relate at all.
So I think what I want to say, actually this year, it's been feeling the easiest it felt compared to before. Maybe because I have a little bit more time for it, even though I don't do it as much. But I think because we organize the event, it does still feel very difficult for me to do the amount of personal work that I would want. And usually I spend time on the weekends to just relax. A lot of times I hang out with my girlfriend and we go out and do things which helps me to relax. And occasionally we would have like a day or something where we would both like have to do some work, and then I would do some personal work as well. But it doesn't happen that often, or not enough to make like a substantial difference. But even then, it still matters. Like recently we had, sorry if I'm rambling a little bit. Recently we had like a day, like a few holidays, like in UK, which were like public holidays on Mondays. Managed to do some personal work there, and I was quite happy about it. And yeah, going back to the question, it feels okay, but I don't think I'm always enjoying it.
There's definitely sometimes like pain periods which you go through with any project, whether that's at work or personal stuff, where I think sometimes to create something where you're trying to push yourself, if you're creating comfort zone projects, then it's usually fine because you're kind of working within systems that you already understand. Yeah. But when you're like, okay, this time I'm going to go to the next level. I'm going to make something like XYZ artist, then it always becomes something much tougher where suddenly, because you're forcing yourself out of your comfort zone, everything becomes a lot darker and spikier.
But at the same time, it's your choice, like I feel like even especially the last few projects I've always tried to try something new that I never did before, or I knew I would be struggling. But because I chose it and because it was a motivated choice from me, it really didn't feel too... I mean, yes, some stuff were technically hard, but it wasn't mentally hard because that was the purpose I was doing it, to learn stuff. And
But wouldn't it get mentally hard if, let's say, after the 10th attempt, you were still fucking it up?
well,
Then
I guess luckily enough, it doesn't
I
happen.
guess you're just the genius.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's interesting because I definitely fell into that with my recent project where I started the project. I did sketches, so I went through like the initial phase of sketches. I fucked it up. I showed it to Daniel, and Daniel was like, "You need to restart this whole project right now." And this is not.
You're making me sound really mean.
No, but I mean, it was.
I said you need to restart this project right now, but in a very loving way.
Yeah. Where I went to bed being like, "Fuck, I have to start again." But I don't know. It was good because it made me reconsider. Because I started the project, I was like, "Yeah, I'm just gonna do this quickly so I can have this in my portfolio."
I restarted a personal project recently because I sent it into our group chat and everybody made fun of me.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And honestly, that was I don't know. I don't think it was like mean spirit. I think it was just like a bit of banter. But at the same time, you know, it's like banter with a hint of truth in it. And I was like, oh god, no. So then I completely restarted the project.
Yeah,
But,
and
I mean,
makes it
also
tougher.
if you redo it, I don't know.
I mean, it always turns
It's
out better usually.
Yeah, it turns out better. You
definitely
learn new
does.
stuff, and also you choose to redo it. I think I tend to struggle more with stuff I don't choose.
Okay.
So if I choose, I'm going to redo something. It's always because I've got some thoughts behind that which make me redo it. The Bats project I did, I redid the whole keyframe because I wasn't happy for some elements,
Right.
and I wasn't really happy to redo it, but it was for a whole reason which
Yeah,
made
it-
me power through it, and then I was
It feels more fulfilling at the
yeah,
end.
yeah. And also, I guess it's my project, you know, like
In a way, I actually I feel a little bit, I mean, yes, I enjoy the kind of like positivity that comes from you being like, oh, I improved, that's great. But I actually find it easier to take revisions from clients, I think, in a professional setting, because I very much try to remove myself from those situations where I'm like, okay, I'm here to facilitate somebody else's vision.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
get very frustrated when it's my vision that's messing up. Do you know what I mean? Where I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Totally.
like, God damn it, it's my brain that's the problem this time.
you know, I guess it's just the little nugget of freedom you get. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, I can make a choice.
yeah.
And then you're happy to make it.
I definitely found that it helps to show other people my
Totally,
projects.
totally.
That also eliminates, like, it allows you to be back into the same aspect where people are giving you feedback and you're taking it on, is what I try to do.
Do you think though, as a little sidetrack to this, do you try to actively think about who you show work to for feedback? Because I found, I think, the more experience I've gained, that if you show everybody feedback, you get into that like too many chefs in the kitchen situation very quickly.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
suddenly it's like one person, there's like maybe one person you're like, oh, they're the perfect person for designing a plant, and they're like, you should make it purple, and you're like, okay. But then you go to like 10 other people and 3 of them say purple, 4 of them say blue, and how many people did they say? 10?
I don't know.
3 and 3, 4 people say orange.
I think
and you're sitting there and you're like,
Just
fuck, I
make
don't know
a
what to do.
rainbow plant after that.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is like, then the feedback isn't direct. And you have to then filter through all of these slightly
Yeah.
problematic feedback that you might
Yeah.
be getting.
I don't show it to many people at all.
Yeah, I mean,
I show it to both of you guys, my colleagues, if there's an
Yeah.
occasion for it. And then I would send it to my parents and to my girlfriend. But most of the time, given the context, you know, I know that the non-artists, they're going to react if there's something really off. you
Yeah.
know? So if there's something that's, maybe it's a artistic thing,
Yeah.
but if it looks really off, fundamentally,
Yeah.
they're gonna notice it.
you-
Otherwise, they're just gonna say, "Oh, it's very nice," no matter how good or bad it is.
Do you
let's
know, one thing I always find really funny, which I think you have to kind of learn as you gain more experience when you're showing stuff to people, is there's that classic thing of like, you show your work to somebody who isn't an artist and they go, why is the dog flying and he's on fire? And
Yeah.
you go, oh, you just don't fucking get it. And that is a really important thing to understand, I think, as you go, is like, that is kind of very similar to that old excuse of like, it's just my style. Where when people did something horribly wrong, you're like, well, that anatomy's really fucked up. And they're like, look,
Okay,
it's just
so-
my style, man.
So
and
you-
I had this a lot when I was doing, at some point I was doing stylized work.
Yeah.
And my parents would be like, I think the proportions are off. And I was like, well, it's just because it's stylized. But
Yeah, so
then,
what do you guys-
then I would be in between where I would actually listen to the feedback.
Yeah.
But then it would look not properly stylized.
Right.
And then I was, Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I'm not.
It was a mistake to listen to that feedback.
Yeah, I'm not saying it always works, but
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
sometimes it's always. I think when you're getting feedback from somebody, there was a phase that I went through where I would take feedback from literally anybody and I would try and implement it.
Yeah.
So I even got an Instagram comment one day where somebody was like, it was completely unwarranted. I don't know why this person did that, but they were like, I think you should make that plant purple or whatever. And I tried it just for the sake of trying it, because I think it is good to have the experience of putting down a lot of people's feedback and seeing how it works, because then that increases your own critical faculties, so you can make more decisions by yourself.
It's important to be open to feedback,
Yeah.
and it's important to actually really, if someone tells you something,
Yeah.
think about it. Don't be like, no, stupid. Just think about it.
Yeah.
And maybe, I guess, with experience, with time, it's faster to think about it, let's say,
Yeah,
or you just know in a more instant way.
Yeah.
And then it just gets faster to just go through feedback.
Yeah.
I also want to say you touched there on something regarding doing like versions or variations. Even like bigger changes to your initial painting or sketch or design. And yeah, I think it's a valuable skill to have, and I've noticed that as well with me. I had to do some paintings at work recently where I was doing a lot of like big changes for them. And once I did it, I thought, oh, this is good that I've learned it now, because whenever I want to try something new in my own concepts, I know, okay, I can do it. I can try like big changes in a painting. It's useful.
I think what you're talking about is that whole thing of like killing your darlings, right?
Yeah.
Where you don't get too attached to a singular thing, so you kind of have that mental ability to just rip something up metaphorically and start again, which I think is important to understand when you've kind of fucked up as well, and just be, to kind of, I did not the one that I restarted because of the bullying, but the baby demon project that I put up on Instagram, maybe, I guess at the time of recording, that was like 2 weeks ago, maybe a bit less. Yeah. I did so many different versions of that project where like I have a whole PSD file of just like loads of different keyframes and like test images and test 3D, because lots of those images just didn't work and they didn't achieve what I wanted them to achieve. And I have no problem at this stage just completely ripping something to shreds. I started that project like, again, 10 times over probably. And I do that all the time, unless I have a really clear idea of what I want. But sometimes I start off with the concept, like, I think the concept for that was like Gate to Hell. And I was like, how can I make something interesting that isn't just a big fucking gate? And then I was talking to Stefan, and Stefan came up with this idea of like, oh, maybe it's like this spherical thing that's like hanging from the ceiling. That's like a different, and that's the portal. And then I was like, okay. And then from there, I built up like an embryo thing. And then I did some paint overs and some renders. And then I built in this big, weird, spiky, spherical shit. And yeah, it just ended up being much more interesting because I was willing to not go with the first idea.
I think it's very useful if you know how to do this. And also it's good to, so I think I used to, when I was in university, I used to just be like, okay, this is my idea for the project and it has to work, and then I'm like struggling with it, being like, God, this and that. And I think sometimes it's good to just have an overarching idea, like what you're doing and know some specifics, like maybe have some story written to it, but be willing to change it. Like I'm working on a vehicle project now, or mech project, to be honest. Less of a vehicle thing. But it changed from the initial idea. It changed, it evolved. But I always tried to evolve it towards what I thought was appropriate. And like sometimes Dan or Jules would be like, oh, what if this is this? What if this is that? I'd be like, you know what? That's a cool idea. And also, if they suggest a cool idea, and maybe I already feel a little bit burned out on the project, or I don't want to do it as much, okay, I would rather change it to something more new and exciting rather than trying to bash the same idea and it's not working and changing it, Just like adapt it. Like, initially, I wanted to make it look more feudal or whatever, and then Dan was like, "Oh, but the sketch looks very kind of hard surface military. Why not make it that?" And I was like, "Okay, why not? Like, I already like it like that." Yeah.
I think it's an interesting thing about freelance personal work.
Daniel been doing too much freelance lately.
But yeah, doing like personal work, you do have the inherent ability to change it up however you want, and there's not really too much point in anchoring yourself desperately to some like lore that you've built or to some world building that you really want to do, because at the end of the day, you're usually making personal work for the purpose of showing it to people, to show off your visual skills, and you don't want to mess up the visual of your image for the sake of something that no one's ever going to care about. Where you're like, I remember, Stefan, when you were at university, you had a project about like an acid rain planet. And I remember us having a conversation about it, and you read me like a 5-page script about the way that this ecosystem worked and stuff. And you're like, and that's why this leaf has to be red. And I was like, yeah, but it looks really bad in this image. And you were like, but Daniel, it has to be red. And eventually, like after like 2 hours of talking, you were like, okay, I'll change it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can't get, I think that is one of the advantages of it, is that you never have to be stuck down by an idea. You're not working on a film, you're not working on a game where it has a set script and there are certain things that need to happen. You can change that script however you want to make it better for what you want.
Yeah. This is also why it's very good to show it to people.
Yeah.
Get proper feedback. And just something I wanted to add as well for the receiving feedback and how to judge it, I guess. Once you get to work and once you get a lot of feedback every day from clients and from our directors, that kind of stuff, you also, by applying this feedback, get to slowly understand what's good and what's bad feedback. Sometimes you get obviously bad feedback, but it's because it's to fit the script.
Yeah.
So it's making the image worse visually, but it is but it is to fit something. So this is something that okay, that's some sort of bad visual feedback. But then sometimes you get feedback from your director, and no matter how good or bad this feedback sounds, then you apply it and you're like, oh wow, that was such a valuable feedback you gave me. And like, even if sometimes the feedback sounds stupid or sounds a bit weird, you apply it and then you're like, wow, okay. Like this, and then you turn on and off the feedback and like what you change, and it just looks so much shit before. And it's good to just have this background of getting feedback every day from clients in a professional context where you basically cannot say no to feedback. And that's also allows you to kind of judge it better in your personal work.
Yeah, totally.
So yeah, things I wanted to add.
I mean, I don't really have to deal with. I mean, how often do you guys get feedback?
It depends on the project.
Okay, so you had
but on
projects where it was
personal work,
daily?
whenever I want.
Yeah.
And that is the subject matter of this podcast.
You control it more.
Dude, I mean, I mostly get feedback from you, Dan, on my.
That is because we live together.
Yeah. And then when I post it from Jules as well.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah, I stand over Stefan's shoulder, and every paint stroke he makes,
he'll look at
I
Actually,
either approve or disapprove.
On the
of.
left, on the right, a bit more on the right, a bit more on the left.
No, I have definitely had feedbacks before where Dan came into my room and was like, I was at the previous last penny I was doing, which was like the one with like a big robot painting on the wall.
Yeah.
Dan was like, how about we make it? Thank you. How about we make it a night painting? Like it was meant to be a day scene, and then when like bright scene, and he's like, how about it should be like at night? And they're taking the painting down.
You're like, fuck off.
And then I totally.
And 10 minutes after, you're like, he's right.
That's the worst kind of feedback on like a personal thing is when you're like really deep into the project, you're like very committed to a certain look, and someone suggests something and they're like, just try it. They say it in a nice way and you're like, fine man, I'll try it, whatever. And you do it and then you're like, that looks so much better. And you just don't want to admit it.
Yeah.
So you're like, yeah, I tried. I did change a few things from what you said, but thanks, I guess. I mean, one of the other things about personal work is, like, why do you guys think it's important? Why should you do it? Like, because obviously, I think there is a sense of self-fulfillment and like creative fulfillment that can come from doing, this kind of stuff. But there's a lot of other reasons, like, for example, keeping your professional portfolio fresh, finding new work, keeping your skills updated and allowing people to see what you can actually do,
So when I do personal work,
it's
always for a specific reason, let's say.
Sure.
Either because I feel like I personally crave creating something, or I have got an idea which I really think would look good, and this is going to motivate me. It's going to bring me in a motivation. Basically, I need something that motivates me, right?
Yeah.
So either it's just creating something cool, like I said before. Then it could be, well, I want to add elements to my portfolio, for clients or for changing job, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
When I wanted to go to Framestore, I did projects that, in my opinion, were fitting to Framestore.
Yeah.
The crocodile insect was very fitting. The monkey thing was also very fitting. So the purpose was because I thought I had a good idea, but also because it was career driven, I guess. And then I guess the last one, which is also career driven, but it's also just to being productive and to be able to publish online. And I guess once you reach, not saying that there's an end level of concept art, but once you work for set company size or set client size, the only way up, let's say, is either by spending years doing a job and getting respect from the industry, or spending extra time in your free time producing personal work and getting, I guess, followers or getting attention, which is another way to kind of get credit in the community.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I guess in terms of like attention, there's that thing of like you could have like 100,000 followers, but if you don't have the right 100,000 people following, it's kind of meaningless. Like when you're working in the concept art industry, you want it to be professional concept artists who follow you, right? So you want to make work that, I guess part of the reason you might make personal work is to encourage, like, if there's some artist you like, Mick Jagger, maybe, famous concept artist Mick Jagger from the Rolling Stones, maybe one of the reasons that you might do personal work is to get somebody like that to follow you so they're aware of your work. Because it is very valuable when you have people who are higher up in their careers than you, who might be, liking and commenting and reposting your stuff, because it kind of adds clout, I guess, to be able
also,
to...
makes you also more famous within that circle, right? So there's a higher chance that they're gonna recommend you to someone.
Totally. It just makes you more valuable because you have more chance to getting clients because more people see your work. You have more chance to be recommended. It just increases your visibility, I guess, and it's very important.
You're probably, I suppose, also in terms of like, let's say like job hunting and stuff, you're probably less likely to get art tested and stuff like that if you have a larger portfolio, because you're showing like your skills up front, essentially. If you have a portfolio that's out of date by like 6 years, then that's going to be a little bit difficult for you, right? To be able to go to somebody and be like, hey, I'm really good. And they're going to go,
trust me, man.
Trust
me, bro. I'm very good.
You can't show anything because it's all under NDA. Everything's locked off on like a company server. So your only option for a lot of people who work in concept art, because a lot of people, if you're working in games, you might not be able to show images for 4+ years in between stuff, right?
I forgot one reason why also I do personal work.
It's
because I want to learn specific things.
I thought you said that.
Did I say learning? I said learning?
You said for specific reasons.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I imply in my brain, but now for the listener, you can explicitly say
Learning.
learning.
So learning new softwares, new techniques, things I want to get better or things I want to get hired for. That's it.
I think I have a fairly chunky portfolio, and for me now, the reason I make personal work is just because I like it. Not that I have like some insanely perfect portfolio or whatever. Like, no, it's just like it's a portfolio of a guy who's been in the industry for 2 years, right? So it's not the craziest thing in the world, but it's big enough that I think it shows off a lot of my skill set. And so any additional stuff that I make now, I'm trying to angle it towards things that I suppose will be things that I might want to work on in the future. So for me, like fantasy artwork is not like a massive thing for me. Like I'm not that big of a fan of Lord of the Rings, but I would love to work on original sci-fi projects. So I'm thinking over the next like year, whenever I do have time to do freelance work, I'm going to try and angle it more towards sci-fi so I can attract that kind of work. Yeah. And also because I like that kind of work. Like that's what I genuinely enjoy doing, and that's the kind of media I enjoy consuming as well. So
I definitely feel like I'm still in the boat of like having an old portfolio, basically, and trying to update it with new projects, and I find it difficult right now with the project I'm working on, because I know that I could be doing things faster, but maybe they wouldn't be to the best quality, or maybe they could still represent the level that I'm at, but if I want to push myself and make something really cool, it just takes time.
Yeah.
At least with Hard Surface, for me, for sure. And weirdly enough, I'm the only one, I think, out of the three of us who hasn't released any of his concepts, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
you
well, I've
released
released I think I released 2 concepts for
like
Willow.
from work.
I've released the most, I think, here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've released 10 or 12
And
images.
I've been working longer than any of you two.
Yeah.
And, not by much, right? But I've been working. I looked it up. I think 2 years and 5 months. I
Yeah.
think at Shark Mob now, and I haven't released anything because the games are not released.
Weirdly, I'm not that desperate to release a lot of my lot of
Yeah.
my work
It's also
stuff.
because
I
you have such a big amount of personal work.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
there is one. I mean, you guys know the movie that I really want to show the work from as well. But there are some films where I'm yeah, oh my god, I really want to show that stuff. But I think I've also kind of, I very much set my expectations at they're below ground. They're
Yeah.
at bedrock for whether I can show stuff. For me, it would be a very happy surprise if I can show anything. But realistically, working in movies and games and whatever, it's just so unlikely. And no matter what stage you work on at the project, it's ultimately up to hey, are they going to put an art book out, right?
Yeah.
Is the director a massive
Also,
fan of
how
your work?
much of the work that you've done, if you worked on a game on the pre-production or something, right? How much of that is
Yeah.
getting into the final game?
Yeah, and
never
also,
know.
if you work on the movie 3 years ago,
Yeah. Did they remember you? When you
and also, I mean, let's say, I think all of us are much better now than when we started.
Yeah.
You learn a lot when you start to work, right? So, if I can show stuff that I did my first day of work, maybe I don't really want, or it's. I mean,
yeah,
it could be
guess.
cool.
There's some stuff which I've done where I'm I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah.
I would just throw it into I did a lot of VFX work and stuff, and I would just throw that into a VFX portfolio
Yeah.
section where I'd be oh look, here's a bunch of VFX
I mean,
stuff
sometimes
I did.
it's also good to just post that you worked on a project.
Yeah,
right?
totally.
Just otherwise, imagine you worked on a project and then you can't post about it, right?
Yeah.
And then
It's like with Doctor Strange.
one believes you, you know?
I wish on Doctor Strange. This has definitely been out long enough. I can talk about this. I can
Yeah.
definitely say what I did. I designed pretty much. There's the scene in the British Museum where Wanda comes in and she fights that universe's the Avengers, and it's John Krasinski from The Office, and
which was super hilarious.
the guy
Yeah.
from X-Men, and there's Captain Marvel, and I can't remember who else. And I helped design their death scenes. That was and that was quite a big thing. And I got to do the big explosion at the end of that scene. I did a lot of work for that. I was working on it for months. I designed some statues in the background and stuff like that. But I don't think I can probably ever show any of that. But it would be nice to show
Did you
that.
go through the hassle of asking and for
I can't
clearance?
remember, honestly. It was so long ago.
Well, you should try now.
Maybe. But it's just interesting because is that work the stuff that I'm most proud of in the world? Well, not really. But it would be a fun post.
Also,
Do you know
it
what I
gives
mean?
also it gives a lot of street cred to
Yeah,
click
yeah,
on
yeah,
an
yeah.
clicking on someone's outstation and seeing Doctor Strange
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
seeing Marvel or Star Wars or whatever. It just
I mean,
It's
I've got my IMDb page attached,
Yeah.
and I have a list of all the projects I've worked on my ArtStation. But yeah, it's not quite the same.
It
as-
is. It is not the same.
Yeah.
I think. Even if you go on IMDb, you just click on it. And it's IMDb doesn't look very.
I mean, I've been in the
fun.
film industry 2 years, and I don't think I have a single piece of film work in my portfolio on ArtStation.
Yeah, it's true.
So, not, and obviously it's a bit of a shame because I have been working on movies solidly for 2 years, and a lot of them have come out, and a lot of the VFX that I did, and a lot of the pre-production design that I've done has remained in the film till the end. But it's just oh yeah, well, I can't show it.
I think that's
Yeah.
the one surprise I had. Even though I was expecting that some people don't show their work, and I think, and I knew that sometimes you don't get to show anything on a project, and there have been instances that I've heard before of concept artists who worked on things and never were able to show. And for many years, I think like there was a Ben Morrow thing, right? Wasn't
Maybe.
it?
I know one
I'm not
guy
sure.
who essentially worked in the industry for 8 years and he never got to show anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which
Also,
is
some
pretty-
people, they work for games for like 4 years and then games is cancelled.
Yeah, and then they can't show it.
And
yeah.
and I
Think about on Overwatch, right? That game had a game that pre-existed it they then changed the I think it was called like Titan, right?
I don't know.
Titan was a game that was under development for quite a long time, and then they took Titan and they made Overwatch out of that. So that's probably like 2+ years
Yeah.
of pre-production that were just gone.
yeah.
And that
It's so
and
much-
all in the art book that exists is 1 page of work from Titan.
That's the good thing from the
Can
film.
I just want to
yeah, go
finish
for it. Go
quickly?
for it.
What I wanted to say is I heard about it, but I wasn't ready how it feels. So
Yeah.
it definitely feels a lot more worse than I thought to think of like not being able to show your work.
Yeah.
And I do think that obviously the skill is still there. So I know that I can do this, produce this, do similar things, similar designs or even better. And I've definitely improved. Hopefully, I mean, I've improved since then, but it still kind of sucks.
Does it?
to
I think it
about that.
feels bad when you have like maybe a gap in your portfolio and somebody calls you out on it and they're like, "Oh man, it would be nice to see more evidence of like I don't know sci-fi design." In your
Yeah,
portfolio."
and you
and
just
you're like,
like-
"Oh, I got the perfect thing, but I can't show you, and I can't even tell you it exists."
Yeah.
And that always feels really bad when you're just like, you know that you can do it because you have done it,
Yeah.
and for a client as well, but
Yeah.
you can't prove it
Do you-
because you're under strict NDA.
Yeah. Do you think that also sometimes pushes people to do personal work?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, I think one thing, although I'm saying that like I love personal work and I love making art, which is true. I do love making art. And if I'm not doing a personal project, I'm sketching or I'm painting or I'm doing whatever. But one of the realities also, I think, is that in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking like, oh shit, don't let your portfolio become irrelevant. Do you know what I mean? Don't let it become out of date. Because I think one thing that really scares me is I've seen a certain amount of people, and I've been told by people who like mentored me of like, you know, like tales of misery and woe, where you know somebody has worked in a studio for 5 years, they've been really busy at the studio, they put their heart and soul into that studio, and then suddenly, bang, they got fired, right? Or they were made redundant, or the company closed down, or the game project was cancelled, and there they are, left to their own devices, trying to find a new job, and they cannot find one because they don't have any evidence. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They maybe they graduated from university and they went straight to this company. This was one thing I like have heard before. Like someone graduates, they go straight to a studio, they stay there for years and years and years,
And
get
then they
laid
still
off.
have university portfolio.
Yeah, and then
God.
all they have is their work from university, and they
Yeah.
can't show anything.
No shipped titles.
Yeah,
no,
and
nothing.
even worse is, let's say, like let's be real. There are some people in the industry who have things called like NDA portfolios, right? Which is like password locked portfolios, where they might be like, "Hey, if you want to see a little bit of cheeky back alley work, let me show you." And they'll show you like, there's one guy I met at a convention who he wasn't even cheeky about it. He just had an iPad and he was like, "Look what I've been working on Morbius," which I was like, "Wow, that's very blatant of you. Well done." But
Some people really don't care.
some
It's
people
funny.
really
It's
don't care,
funny, yeah.
which is interesting.
Yeah,
I mean,
especially given that
you should care.
An NDA is
Yeah.
very important.
But yeah, you can be stuck in that position.
Yeah.
And you know, those people with password locked portfolios, that's because the work is on their hard drives. Some companies even have like lockdown hard drives where you can never the work never
You're, like,
leaves.
forever stuck. It's like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Unless you like take pictures on on like a
So
phone or
so for
something.
me, I would never ever want to be in that position. So I think the doing quite a lot of personal work also solves that like mental thing in the back of my head, you know, which would keep me up at night being like,
Yeah.
oh god, something's bad gonna happen. Something
No, but-
bad's gonna happen.
It's doing personal work. At least I can relate to that because, like, let's say 2 months ago,
Yeah.
I produced a lot of personal work,
Yeah.
which updated my portfolio kind of thing.
Yeah.
So now my portfolio, I think, is much more reflective to what I'm able to do,
Yeah.
and I feel much better now of my online presence, let's say, or I feel much better about my station, my Instagram,
Because
and
you
all
know
that.
when people look up your name.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, Jules who works at Frame Store, and then they just see a portfolio from like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
which is bad, you know? So now it's like, oh, Jules who works for this company,
That-
and then
that
they
is-
see the portfolio, and it's like, okay, well,
they're like, that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. You know, I mean, hopefully it makes sense.
They then look at your portfolio and go, how did that happen?
He hasn't changed. It's even worse. No, but you know, like, and it is a, I don't know, it's just a, I guess,
I guess it's an insecurity, right?
Yeah, totally.
I definitely feel like I'm in that boat right now. I don't
Stefan,
have a
you're in a
2-year-old.
room. We're not in a boat.
I don't have a 2-year-old portfolio, but also the work that I have posted doesn't exactly reflect on the things that I've learned, even in this year. You know, like I haven't posted a personal project this year, right?
Yeah, but you have been, I think, taking considering that for 2 years you did no personal work, I think you're taking quite big leaps and strides in doing more.
Yeah.
And on that note, perfect segue. What do you if you want to do personal work but you're struggling, what's your advice to people? Stefan, do you want to start this off, buddy?
Yeah, I guess I can.
Yeah.
No, so maybe I have a lot of experience in that, but I would say first you need to get into a position where you need to like enjoy your personal work somewhat. I think if you are in a, like I was after uni in a position where I didn't really want to force myself into doing anything, so I really didn't do much for like a year or two, because I knew that it would just be bad for my mental health. So I think once you're past that, let's say you're past that, and then you're still struggling because you're busy, you are organizing a conference, you have like other things, you hang out with your friends, you love your social life, right? So you go to the gym. So what did? I mean, Daniel always said to me, which is like, well, if you go to the gym 5 times a week and you don't have time for personal work, it's your choice. And it's true. And I think it's about reflecting honestly of like how much personal work you want to do, and how much you're willing to kind of give time for it, and where can you optimize your time. So I can explain quickly where I optimize my time.
Can I add something into that? Because I got the question actually on because I got 3,000 followers on Instagram. Oh my god! After like 8 years of having Instagram, I was like, yay!
Yeah.
A following. So I did like a mini Q&A, and I did actually get
Look
the
at Dan
question.
being an influencer now.
I know, God, I'm so famous, huh? But I got the question like, how do you do more personal work? And I think something to add in is like, if you really, because you're talking about like being self-reflective, right?
Yeah.
If you really, really, really have to force it, then maybe you just really need to take a look at yourself and think about if you want to do this. Like, not even if you want to be a concept artist, but if you want to be one of those people who like puts in like shit tons of passion, quote unquote, because there's plenty of fucking people in the industry who it's a job for, and that's
totally
fine.
fine not to do personal work.
Yeah.
I think
I
there's
think
nothing bad about not doing personal work if you don't feel like doing it.
Yeah.
Right. If you feel bad about not doing it, then okay, do it.
But I think one of the problems is that like in the industry we kind of have like bred a culture of guilt around like not doing personal work, where some people are like I definitely speak to some people and they're like, oh man, I feel so bad for not doing personal work. And it's like, okay, but like, do you want to do it? Because it shouldn't be something, look, there are points in time where maybe you do have to force yourself to do it because you're like, I want to upgrade my job or whatever. But at the same time, like, it should be something that's enjoyable, I think. I think it should be something that you want to do. And I think if you want to do it, then it should be connected to maybe like larger goals about what you want to do with your life and stuff.
Totally.
But there's plenty of people out in the world who just, want to do their job and then they go home, they chill out, they have hobbies that aren't art-based. Mm-hmm. They go climbing, they play football, they hang out with their friends, whatever. And that is also totally fine. And I think it's a little bit... I don't know, I think it's like almost like a psychosis bred from the industry where like, especially because it's all visual and we're seeing each other posting work all the time, where you feel like you have to do it because other people are doing it.
Social media are not helping. Everyone is always comparing themselves to others. Everyone who's got a job has got the imposter syndrome, let's say, that, oh, if I have a job, well, I should prove that I'm worth it. Or like, and it's this constant thing where you always want to put out stuff to...
I think that's why
because you compare yourself.
I think that's why I did the 2 years where I almost didn't do anything, because like that helped me to get over it a little bit mentally. It's just because you need to. I knew I wanted to do it, but definitely at the end of my uni, like I just didn't, like every time I did it, I didn't enjoy it. So I think it's about like finding the enjoyment. And I don't know, again, if you know, if like I think probably deep down you know if you don't like it, or if that's not what you want. Like maybe imagine you, like if you are sitting down doing personal work and on your head you're thinking, man, I should be living my life, I should be going to all these parties, I should be all doing, like if that's what you're thinking about, then probably you should be going to all those parties. You shouldn't be sitting down and but if you are in those parties, be like, man, I should be doing all these amazing projects. I should be like exploring all these creative endeavors, and this is what I want to do. If you are in that mindset, then maybe you should do that. You know, it's just like understanding yourself. And also, I think it takes time to like get to it and like understand yourself.
There's always balance, you know, like you don't have to choose it in both. You can just balance it and choose things. And, you know, maybe at some point
I haven't been to a party in 20 years. All I've been doing is working. I never hang out with my
the only party we go to is the Concept 101
party. Actually, let's quickly get back to where I was breaking down how to have more time for it, because I also hang out with my friends, and same as Daniel. And
I don't count, Stefan. Just because we live together, it doesn't count.
I hang out with Jules.
I'm just joking.
I mean, I have a girlfriend. I have a girlfriend. We hang out together.
Oh well, la-di-da. Look at you, huh?
No, so.
But you're right. Yeah, it is like we all have lives outside of doing art. Yeah.
You always have to carve out some time to do personal work, and I tend that every time I start to do personal work because I want to, there's always something else. Most of the time, I've got to sacrifice on doing less.
Yeah.
So let's say I'm going to play some video games with my friends. Well, if I do personal work and I'm like passionate about some personal work, then maybe for 2 weeks or a week, I'm not going to see my online friends.
It also depends on your personality, right? Because although I am like fairly extroverted, I think I'm kind of extroverted in bursts. Like I would recommend to people like,
You just enter a room, you shout, and then you leave. Then you go paint.
Well, it's just like I've had weeks where like for 2 weeks I'm doing something every day. Like I've had weeks where I've been like, I'm going to like 4 parties this week, and I'm going to a concert.
I remember that. I think that was like a specifically busy time. Daniel was like, I'm going to this and this and this and meeting with everyone.
And it's like 2 weeks. It was like 2 weeks. I couldn't do anything else. And by the end of that 2 weeks, I was so tired. And I just didn't do anything for a week afterwards because I need to like recover. And it's like, if you experiment with like, you know, it also depends on how you're feeling that week and your mood at that time and stuff. But once you get to kind of like know yourself, I think, then you can make like a climate, like adjustments to things. Yeah. Some weeks I'm like, Jesus Christ, I do not want to do anything. I don't want to see anybody. So I'm going to do 5 days of personal work and just paint at home. And some days I'm like, I miss all my friends. We're doing this on Monday. We're doing this on Tuesday. We're going to go climbing this day. Then we're going to have a party. Woo! And yeah, but it fluctuates, right? And if
totally.
I think people, you can't have like too strict a regimen around things. I think that's always a kind of recipe for a bit of misery in a way, or really.
If it's too much like repetition of the same stuff, like not allowing yourself, like if you go, like, oh, I have to do this that day and no matter what. And
it's like you actually have for somebody, although we make fun of you occasionally for going to the gym and stuff, you actually have very good discipline and balance with going to the gym, because you go to the gym regularly and you very rarely miss out a day, but you do make sure that there are exceptions where you're like, okay, well, yes, I'll make an exception and not go to the gym that day because something important is happening, right? And I think it's really destructive when somebody has a regimen that they have to follow so closely that they then miss out on extra life experiences.
The exception makes the rule, as one might say.
Wait, what the heck, Jules?
I'm not even sure if is that a phrase? I'm gonna look that up.
I heard
it's French.
What do you mean by that?
Well,
can you say it in French? So
the exception makes the rule. So if there's a rule, so if you have an exception, it kind of proves that there is a rule.
Okay. Yeah, I heard this before, like in
Russian
or Ukrainian.
That is a phrase. I'm just stupid. Sorry. Yeah.
Also, what I want to talk about as well in that sense, that like this week, for example, I just like we had to do some conference stuff. So like, for example, usually I would go to the gym on Monday, but I didn't because in the mornings I decided to do some conference stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to do that. And then On Tuesday I went because I was still excited. I woke up, I was like, okay, going to the gym, this is awesome. And then it was Tuesday evening, and I remember texting my girlfriend and be like, I don't know if I want to go. Like, I feel tired, and all these other things. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to wake up in the morning, and I'll just see. If in that morning I wake up and I want to do personal work, or because usually on Wednesdays morning I'll do personal work, or I want to sort out some conference or start work early or go to the gym, I'll just see how I feel. And I woke up and I was like, okay, I want to go to the gym. I feel good. Let's do this, And but if I didn't, sometimes I didn't. Sometimes I had those moments where I just didn't go to the gym, and it was okay as well. Or I just did other things, or like decided to sleep longer.
If I did that method every morning, it would be going back to bed.
Okay, fair enough, Daniel.
Also, at the end, personal work comes into a context of people that have a job, right? If you don't have a job, I say that personal work is your work. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
So, it's just fun. Like it's a passion thing, right?
I actually think
it's more personal project than personal work.
I think when you're a student, it's less fun. It's
more
stressful.
Yeah, because it's stressful because you got to find a job, and because
yeah.
you need to think about it so fucking hard, because it needs to be the perfect project to get the perfect job and all that.
Like when I talk to students a lot of the time, I'd be like, oh yeah, you need to make a project like this, and they'll be like, what about this project you put out last week? That doesn't have 10 iterations and like layers of feedback and like this and that. And I'm like, yeah, well, I have a job now, so it doesn't matter. I can just do whatever I want, kind of, like as long as it serves a purpose in my portfolio, or I can show it to a client. But yeah, when you're a student, oh my God, I found it so stressful building on my portfolio, because I had such heavy expectations on myself and such heavy expectations for every single project. And it was I wouldn't say it was painful, but it wasn't far off.
Listen to our previous podcast, Portfolio Mistakes, to know more.
What if this one doesn't come out immediately after that one? Then you'll sound silly.
It will come out immediately after that one.
Oh, will it?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, just to make sure of it.
He's gonna write a note on his computer screen so he doesn't forget.
We upload it in order, so.
Do we?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know.
The only one that was a bit of the announcement one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was recorded.
Yeah.
And in a way, isn't this personal work as well? Talking with our friends around the table about random shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely work.
So tough.
Yeah, annoying. But yeah, so the conference or event, whatever you call it, thing is personal work, personal project. I tend to feel like when I'm doing a lot of event stuff,
Yeah.
it takes quite some time, and I guess it's time I don't spend seeing my friends, seeing my girlfriends, going out, girlfriend, not S.
I know.
So then it's like, do I want to lose more social time to do personal artwork on the side? Not really. And so, at the end also the event stuff is, I guess, some sort of passion work as well, because we're not getting anything. We're getting stuff out of it, but
Not really. Not
not
real stuff.
not any tangible element, I guess.
A lot of recent conversations.
Yeah.
maybe we're getting some good karma. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe the karmic
It's-
wheel will
it's,
turn.
it's
in our
interesting. Like
favor.
sometimes, like my colleague Marcus at work, he would sometimes be like, "Yo, the conference is so big, it's so important, man, what you're doing." And when he says it, I'm like, "Oh, okay, it makes sense." Like, I guess no, it's good that some people feel that way, because because sometimes I'm like, does it even make a difference?
No, dude. It's funny because when you see an event, or when you see some sort of organization,
Yeah.
they tend to look mighty and big, and like people know exactly what they're doing, and it's like a very organized, and people doing serious talk on a table and knowing where they're going. And most of the time it's just dudes.
Yeah, we're just three little boys.
Yeah. And it's funny to see how people perceive us. I guess thanks to the branding we've been doing in the previous event.
Yeah.
And how it actually is. It's just three dudes.
Sending tons of emails, doing tons of organization.
And it's not, and that's why when we did the drink and draw, or when at the event, we actually see like, okay, that's why, and that's how people perceive us, and it actually brings a lot of sense.
Yeah. To bring back to the subject thing, you were talking about like having multiple things going on, including the event, right? And I totally kind of resonate with what you're saying, because for me, although personal work is the thing that I find the most fun, because it's kind of it's like a luxury activity to me in a way where I'm like, okay, this is what I do for my personal enjoyment. And so when I'm very busy, it is the first thing to go out the window in terms of like, what am I going to do this week? Because if I'm really, really busy, I'm not doing personal work. So yeah, I think, but again, that's one of the kind of luxuries of having a job in the industry, right? Is it's not as important. It's still important, but not as important. But also, to bring it back, Stefan was going to tell us his techniques for getting better at doing it, and we went on a tangent. So Stefan, back to you, buddy.
Yes. So from my perspective, one of the things that I do is so this is my schedule, personal schedule. In that sense, I cook my foods on Monday evening. So but this is
Oh my God, get to the point.
I was born in.
no. I think this is very important because
You know, people accuse us of bullying Stefan on the podcast, but then we're like, how do you get better at personal work? And he's like, well, first of all, I cook my food.
the eventual point in this is
Okay, yeah.
finding even 1 or 2 hours.
Yes.
And to find those 1 or 2 hours is to optimize a little things that you care about. Like for me, I care about like the amount of food that I eat. Yeah. And so I will cook on Monday evening for like 4 days. And I wouldn't cook on Sunday evening because Sunday evening is where I can still be doing personal work, for example. But I know that on Monday evening, when I come back from work, I might be tired. So I use that time to cook for...
You're so organized.
You're very organized.
That day I cook for 4 meals, which is my 4 lunches. And my dinners are usually always after that going to be very simple to cook.
Yeah.
And if I have simple dinners to cook, like literally 30 minutes or something, that's still fairly healthy, if I can make it, then I have time to do personal work in the evening. So
I think though it's pretty, like, honestly, it's pretty realistic to carve an hour out of your day for something that you really care about.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time, if you look at like really how a lot of people spend their days, there is a lot of time where people do quote unquote like winding down or relaxing, and I think it's about making an active choice to
So much time on Instagram.
not be on Instagram for an hour, not watch Netflix for an hour. It's not to say there's anything wrong with doing those things
try to
necessarily.
get rid of addictions if you have. Like I used to...
Meth.
Yeah.
Don't do meth.
Okay, it doesn't help. I have to tell you.
Cocaine probably would
Since I
help.
quit meth, I do paintings.
Meth might help in the short term. Because I think it would give you a similar boost of energy to cocaine, right?
I don't know.
I'll research it.
For example, playing video games. Like some people like to play video games, and that's fine. I found video games very addictive for me personally. And I found that when I played them, I would end up like not enjoying it unless I played it with a specific group of friends that I wanted to play it. So unless I used it as a social tool.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if I just went and like played, or there are some games that I enjoyed, like I played Death Stranding, but that was also because I liked the visuals.
Because you like running in a field.
Yeah. I like the visuals. Stop it.
It is very cool visuals.
Yeah, and so for example, if you have less of those things, like sometimes sometimes when you watch a TV show, you get home and you're like, oh fuck, I should do personal work, but that TV show, I want to see it, Like if you're like Daniel, then you just have it on the other screen and you just do work, and that's...
Although
that's what Dan
interestingly,
does.
I focus much worse when I'm watching TV at the same time. I do tend to multitask, but I've been trying to... I watched a very interesting video which was called like the scourge of doing 2 things at once, which was about how in the modern day people tend to always try and do 2 things at once rather than just focusing on one thing, because we have such like it's not really to do with having short attention spans, but it's just like our time is so precious because so much of it gets taken up by work and other responsibilities that we have that are just like full of the modern day, that when you get home, you're like, I'll cook my dinner and watch TV because I don't have time. Yeah, because you don't have time to do those things individually anymore. And I've been trying to more actively do one thing at a time, which I think actually does help a lot. I don't know why we're talking about it. Sorry, I lost track of my
It's also
thoughts.
about selecting what you do at the same time as what,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a lot of time
Listening to
I
music
know-
is fine.
Yeah,
when
listening
doing
to music is
personal
fine
work,
with pretty much everything for me. Then watching videos is fine with most of the tasks that don't require too much design. Like if I do a paint, if I polish an image, let's say the design is already done, that's fine. I can watch stuff at the same time. But if I'm doing a design driven tasks, then watching video is going to be difficult. So I kind of choose what I'm doing.
There's some spaceship designs that I did recently in my own time, and I spent one evening. I was listening to music, and I did 4 designs in 2 hours, and they were quite like clean line art. Then an evening afterwards, I did 4 designs in 4 hours because I was watching a TV show at the same time.
Yeah.
So I mean, it can be quite linear like that. And I think once you, but also like, you know, sometimes it's fine to watch a bit of TV because you're tired and you just want to watch the TV.
Sometimes I mean, like sometimes when that's like when you want to start to do some personal work and like the way you started is that you just watch something and like you makes you a little bit chill and then you start to do stuff. That helps.
Final bits of advice.
I'm just trying.
Doesn't Stefan usually give us a final heartwarming notion to end on?
I think just to optimize. No, let's not talk.
That's
about
not very
optimization.
heartwarming.
Just
I think with
ask
personal,
yourself what you like to do. Ask yourself why you want to do it. If it don't make sense, do it. If it doesn't make sense, then don't do it. Like just
and if you
Believe in yourself.
and if you want to do it,
don't believe in yourself.
you should believe in
doubt
yourself.
yourself. Never trust yourself.
The more you doubt yourself, the better you get. No, and also I would say, as Danielle said before, that if is there something that you really want to do, you can carve out like an hour a day to do it. I'm sure you can manage it, and then you'll be fine. And even like 1 hour a day for personal work, like 7 times during the week is good. And just one more advice I want to say, like if you struggle with personal work, sometimes it's good to have like every now and then spend like a whole Saturday or a whole Sunday, because it can help to move your project a lot forward and give you extra motivation. So that's something that I do as well sometimes.
That's how I do it. I don't do 1 hour per day. I can't do that. I just do. If I have a project, I'm gonna speedrun it, and then I'm gonna work like for a weekend on it, or like for a whole day.
But do whatever works for you.
My closing bit of advice: if you start with half an hour, you can build up to an hour. If you can do an hour, you can build up to 2. If you can do 2, you can build up to 3. And you can do.
And you can quit your job and do only personal work.
Just to the point of, if there is something that you really want to achieve and you really do want to build up your portfolio and make a lot of stuff, it's totally achievable. You just have to build your way up to it. It's like building a muscle.
You need to facilitate yourself to do it.
Yeah.
Like it takes will and time to do it. You cannot just. Yeah, it takes time.
Yeah. So just like Nike always says, just don't do it. Over time, you will build it up and you will be able to just do it. That's the famous Nike slogan. A perfect note to end on.
Thank you.
So that'll be the end for today's episode. We really hope you enjoyed listening. And if you want more, please feel free to subscribe. We release episodes every 2 weeks. And if you want any more additional information about the podcast or the event, be sure to check out our Instagram linked in the description below. Thank you again to all of our wonderful sponsors for the event. Jules just made a hand signal at me. What does that mean?
He was saying,
Ring the
ring the
bell.
notification bell.
And ring the notification bell. I'll get that next time. All right. Thanks again. And we'll see you soon. Bye.
Take care.
See you.